Well, hello everyone. It's been quite a while since I've done a post of any kind. We've been doing a lot of traveling through the winter all over Arizona and Nevada, and we are now back in Texas for our spring maintenance, which would be maintenance for us. So we've got doctor's appointments and dentist appointments and eye appointments and all that good stuff. So it's been a while since I've had my garage open for sewing. And as of yet, I haven't even set up my sewing machine. But I do have my first project that I'm going to work on getting started, right? And so the question was, what am I going to work on first? Well, I want to share a story and share a little bit about how I go about making a quilt if I don't have a pattern. Okay, so for example, here's how this story started. 2 years ago, we wintered in Arizona, and I purchased this fabric, which is very beautiful, Native American print. And I purchased enough for a backing, because I knew I would want to do a backing with it at some point. And then last year I had decided I was going to use it for a particular quilt on the backing. And then when I got the quilt done and I matched it up, and I was like, I don't really like that with that front, right? That quilt top. The colors weren't quite right, and so I didn't like it. So I put it away and said, okay, kind of forgot about it. This year, when we were in Arizona, my sis Ernie, a very good friend that I've had since I was 4 years old, was visiting me, and we went to a quilt shop, and she liked this fabric. And I thought that was very cute. I could use strips for borders and that sort of thing, so I bought some of that. And then I was in a different quilt shop, and I found this one, which is a beautiful pictorial of cactuses in bloom. And so I thought, okay, so now I have these three, and I put them together, and I was like, ooh, I like the way they look. They look pretty good together. And so I thought, okay, I've got two focus fabrics now for a quilt top, but what am I going to do with it? So I was online shopping at Marshall's Dry Goods, and if you haven't heard about them, go check them out. They're awesome. And I thought, I'll just order some matching or coordinating fabrics to go with these two big focus prints, and I'll just decide what to do with them. So I ordered these. I've got a nice orange and a purple, a kind of a green and a blue. All right. So now I had all these fabrics, and I was like, well, what am I going to do with them now? I've got to make a quilt. And I wanted it to represent Arizona to me. And as I said, my sis Ernie is a native of Arizona. She is a member of the Navajo tribe, and she grew up there part of the year and part of the year with me in Missouri. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. So anyway, I decided I wanted this quilt to represent Arizona to me. And so what am I going to do? And so I went out looking, and if you know about Generations Quilt Blocks, or Generation Quilt Library, I think it's called, is a really good resource. There's also Quilter's Cache. Both of those sites have hundreds of quilt blocks, traditional type quilt blocks that you can get the pattern for, and they are all different sizes. And so you can sort and decide. Anyway, so I went out and I found two blocks that I liked. One is called Blazing Arrows, and the other is called the state of Arizona. So, most states have a block that just kind of has their name on it. So anyway, I sat down and I worked out what I was going to do. And so here is my drawing. And so I decided where I was going to use the cactus fabric, where I was going to use the Kokopelli fabric as those big focal fabrics, and where I was going to use the other blocks and what colors. So I drew it out like this, and did my math, right, to determine what is the size. And the size of this is going to end up being, based on my math, 84 by 84. Each of the blocks are 12 inches. So I'm essentially just doing 9 blocks with multiple borders, essentially, or sashes, right? They're sashes because I've got sashing in between. So one of the tricks of figuring this out was these are 12-inch blocks, right? But this fabric, the Kokopelli and the cactus fabric, both of these, I only have a 10-inch strip, right? They're both set up with like strips where you can use long pieces of them, but they're only 10-inch wide. And so I had to figure out how to make them 12-inch in order to use them, right? So what I did is I put sashing here around each one. And because when I bought the fabric, I didn't buy based on a pattern, so I didn't know how much I needed, I just bought amounts. And so when I sat down to figure out how much I was going to use, what I was going to use them in, as I started measuring, I was like, well, I only have this much of this particular one. So anyway, I had to figure out if I had enough fabric to do this, and I should have enough to do this design, right? And so then I had to figure out, well, how am I gonna, what are my cutting instructions, right? Because normally you get a pattern, it tells you how much fabric you need, it tells you how to cut each fabric for each block and how to put them all together and all of that stuff. Well, I don't have that because I'm making my own pattern, right? And anybody can do this. It's not really as hard, and it's not really as math heavy as you think if you use a block that's already, you're not making up your own block, right? So these blocks that are out on Generations and on Quilters Cash, they have the instructions how to make them. They have the sizes of the blocks. They have the cutting instructions for each one. So you're not totally on your own there. So it's a really great resource. And so I took this and then I made my own cut list, right? So when you get a pattern, it has your cut list on it, right? And it says this fabric A or whatever, cut this many pieces, this many strips by, whatever. So I had to do that by going into where the block is listed at and getting the instructions for that. And then of course I had to make sure that I counted for the number of blocks, because the instructions are for one block on the website and I'm making 4 of one and 5 of another. So I needed to make sure that when I was writing down my amounts for my cutting, that I was making sure I was cutting enough to do that quantity of blocks. All right. And then I just had to figure out, for everything else, these larger pieces here where I'm using the focus fabric. So I'm cutting 2 squares for 10 by 12, 2 here for 10 by 12. These are 10 by 36. And so the thing to remember is don't forget to add for your seam allowance, right? So a 10 by 36 is going to be 10.5 by 36.5, so that you have a 1/4 inch on each seam edge, right? So as long as you remember that, you're good, right? And so I have my cut list now, and I am ready to start cutting my fabric. So that's what I'm going to be working on over the next couple of days, is getting my cutting done. And then I will come back and show you later, as I start putting it together, how it's looking. So wish me luck. I hope that this comes out well. I'm sure it'll be pretty regardless, but I hope it comes out as good as I think it will in my brain, right? So you never know about these things. it's an experiment. We'll try it. I am not new at this kind of thing. I've done this before, which is why I'm not afraid to try it here. Anyway, we'll see how it comes out. All right. That's all I've got for today. I hope you guys are all well, and I'll be back in a couple of days with an update on how I'm doing. See ya.